Shalom Yochanan. Yeah, here we have this week's Torah portion. Parshas Ra'eh. God is preparing the Jews for entering the land of Israel, and now he's going to start giving them commandments. We're going to really get a lot of commandments. Up to now, we haven't had that many, but now, we're going to really start getting a lot of commandments over here. How many commandments are there in this week's Torah portion? Well, we have 54 commandments in this week's Torah portion. 17 positive commandments and 37 prohibitions in this week's Torah portion. Parshas Ra'eh. And we're going to get in Shoftim and Tetzei. These are going to be the bulk of the commandments are going to be in the book of Deuteronomy, are in these three Torah sections. So let's see if we can go through a few of them, what they are, and here let's go through a couple of the commandments we have here. Let's go down here 1 minute. There we go. Oh, excuse me. I'll just go over here. This is showing you where Shem and Har Grizim is. And let's go over to you one moment. We'll go through some of the commandments. In this week's Torah portion. Excuse me for the delay here. Just want to get to this from Torah for sure we did last week. Here we go. All right, here's a summary of the commandments that we're going to learn in this week's Torah reading. Like I said, there's 54 of them altogether. Let's see. Here we go. Good. All right. Now let us share. Let us share. All right, here we have the commandments for this week. Are we recording? Yes, we are recording. Good. Parshas Ra'eh. 17 positive commandments. 17 positive commandments. You can count them. And 37 negative commandments. Let's go through a few of them. A positive commandment to destroy all idolatry in the land of Israel. Not supposed to let any of it stand. That's a positive commandment. Prohibition, not to destroy anything that's holy. That's why the whole idea of erasing any name of God from the 7 names of God, which cannot be, you're not allowed to erase them. If you see these names written down, this name of Yud-Kei, Vav-Kei, Adoni, Kael, Elokah, Elokim, Shaddai, and even Tzavaot. Here it says Tzavaot. There's different opinions if Tzavaot is one of the names, but nevertheless there's 7. If you erase even one letter from these, it's forbidden. And it says that even in English, if you write God bless you, or in French, adieu, or in Spanish, adios, right? The word Dio and the word Dieu and the word Dios and God, and those are, so you're not supposed to really write those. That's why when we write, God's name, you write G-D. Here, it comes from here. Not to destroy any holy thing. That we have shemos, places, special places where they're buried. Positive commandment to bring all of the sacrifices. If you have a sacrifice to offer, you have to bring it into the holy temple. Like it says, it says, you have a sacrifice when the holy temple is built, you're not allowed to sacrifice any sacrifices except for that. Before it was built, there were certain times when you could build what was called a bama. You could make bama. You could make sacrifices in your backyard. The whole time there was Shiloh, the Mishkan, the tabernacle stood at Shiloh. When the Jews came into the land of Israel, it was 440 years until the temple was built. And that, from that 440 years, 369 of it was in Shiloh. And that time also they could not offer up any of the other offerings. But before that, when it was in Gilgal, and afterwards when it came to Nob and Givon, then they could offer up what's called the free will offerings in your backyard. You could do it if you wanted to. Negative commandment, not to sacrifice any sacrifices outside of the temple whenever there's a temple. Still, let's say 20 of these commandments. Here we go. Positive commandment. If there is, you brought an animal to the holy temple, but there occurred in it a blemish that disqualified it from sacrificing. So you have to redeem it. You have to redeem that offer. Kadoshim, you have to redeem the offering, etc. There's a lot of details. Here's 3 commandments. Negative commandment, don't eat Meiser Sheni. Meiser Sheni is one part of the produce that you have to give here. You have to give it to the Levi. A negative commandment, not to drink wine of Meiser Sheni. A third commandment, not to eat oil from Meiser Sheni. Meiser Sheni has to be taken to Jerusalem and redeemed, and then you can eat it up there. Special commandment. Negative commandment, don't eat firstborn outside of Jerusalem. You can eat it in Jerusalem, but not the firstborn animal. Not to eat meat from the chatas offering, the sin offerings, outside of the azur. This is a commandment to the Kohanim, not to eat it outside of the temple. We see there's a lot of commandments that are dependent on the holy temple, and until the holy temple is there, we can't do these commandments. Negative commandment, not to eat any meat from the offerings. There are a lot of offerings. There are certain offerings which are called an ola. An ola is not eaten. It's burnt up holy on the offering. But the chatas and the asham are eaten. Partially, they're eaten by the kohanim. In any case, also the shlomim is eaten even also by the owners. But you can never eat any type of meat, not the Pesach offering or any of these offerings. You cannot until the blood is sprinkled on the altar. You sacrifice the animal and then they sprinkle the blood, and then the meat can be eaten. Those things that are eaten, edible. Negative commandment, the Kohanim cannot eat firstborn outside of Jerusalem, firstborn animals outside of Jerusalem. All these have more detailed explanations that I don't want to go through right now. Negative commandment, not to neglect the Levites. The Levites are supposed to be looked after by the Jewish people. They don't have jobs and things like that, and therefore they're devoted to God. So you're supposed to give to them. You give them the Meiser Sheni, and there's other things which also gifts which are given to the Levites. Positive commandment. If you want to eat an animal, you have to slaughter it according to Jewish law. Very difficult laws. In order to be a ritual slaughterer, you have to know all the laws. You have to know how to make a knife. You have to know how to make a knife smooth, etc. Very difficult. Laws of shechita. Negative commandment. Do not eat a limb taken from an animal before it dies. In other words, let's say you slaughtered an animal properly, right? I'm going to tell you, an animal before it is slaughtered, and you pulled off a limb from that animal, and then you slaughtered it, and even if you slaughtered it properly, that limb is always forbidden. Right? Let's say a limb fell off of the animal that's not life-threatening. It doesn't make the animal disqualified, treif. But nevertheless, if it came off of an animal before it was slaughtered, before it died, it is forbidden. It's also forbidden to eat blood from an animal before it dies. Okay. But incidentally, very interesting, by the non-Jews, it's more severe than the Jew. A Jew, once the animal is slaughtered and you cut with a knife the majority of the, if it's an animal, then the majority of the food pipe and the windpipe, then you can eat the animal. You can take the animal from take meat from the animal. But a non-Jew is not allowed to until the animal stops the throes of death, till it stops moving around. But a Jew, all the time the animal was called mefarcheses, as a Jew can take meat from an animal if it was slaughtered properly, even though the animal is still moving around. A Jew can, and a non-Jew is not allowed to. A non-Jew is Ever Min HaChai, more severe. There are certain other things that is more severe. A non-Jew is punishable even if he steals less than a penny. It's punishable. A positive commandment that you that if you bring animals from outside of the land of Israel, you also have to be careful with those animals, and that you can't, like it says, that if you live in Lebanon or somewhere and you say you want to bring an offering to the Holy Temple and you designate an animal, then you have to watch that animal that doesn't fall a blemish in that animal. A little bit more negative commandment. You're not allowed to add on the commandments of the Torah. You're not allowed to add. You're not allowed to remove the commandments of the Torah. Now, of course, there are certain things where the rabbis are allowed to, but you're not allowed to. For instance, you want to put on 5 portions of your tefillin, 5 batim in the tefillin, right? You want to throw in there also the 10 commandments or something. Nice idea, but it's puzzle. It's forbidden. Not a good idea at all. What if you want to remove some of the commandments, right? You instead of having 4, you want to remove some of the commandments. You want to say, there's nothing wrong with lighting fire on Shabbos. That's a little bit too much. Right, back in the desert, they had the light matches and things like that. Nowadays, we just push a little button. It's okay. You're not allowed to remove from the commandments of Shabbos, of the Torah. What about adding? Adding is a good thing. What's wrong with adding on? You want to add on something like that? He says, no. As soon as you start adding on, then you'll think you're the boss. You think you're the boss. You're supposed to do what God says. The rabbis, on the other hand, there are sometimes where they're allowed to make fences around the Torah, but they did not add to the Torah. Then there's other commandments the rabbis are allowed to add on to. For instance, the lights of Hanukkah, Megillah of Purim, making blessings before you eat, food before you eat, making blessings after other things, etc. There are special considerations that are made when the rabbis are allowed to make extra commandments, but you have to have faith that the rabbis really wanted to serve God. They're not doing it to make life easier. Negative commandment, not to listen to a false prophet. If there's a prophet that prophesies in the name of idolatry, or he prophesies in the name of himself, he says, I am God, that's called a false prophet, and you're not allowed to listen to him. Here we have 6 commandments, and then we'll stop with this, and then we'll go to the Torah portion. 6 commandments. Commandment number 1, negative commandment. Don't convince any Jew to serve idols. Terrible thing to do. All these missionaries and terrible people in the land of Israel that the Israeli identity less government is invited in. So all these people are doing a tremendously terrible sin. They're evil, terrible people. They're convincing people to worship idols. This is a terrible, terrible thing. Negative commandment. A person that someone comes and tries to convince you to worship an idol, right? Don't have any mercy on that convincer. It's forbidden to say, hey, listen, they're nice people. They have good intentions. This is forbidden to do. Negative commandment. not to abandon, not to, hold yourself back from hating anyone who tries to push Jews away from Judaism. Negative commandment. Don't save the convincer, the person who's going around, the missionary. The masit is a missionary, right? The missionary, don't have any mercy on him. Don't try to save him. He goes to court and they say, this person tried to make Poloni do a sin. The official punishment, we haven't got there's no punishment of death nowadays. But if there was, then this person will be punished. You can't say, oh, come on, I know him. He's a really nice guy, fellow of infinite jest. Let him go. What did he do? What's wrong? He really believes in this stuff. You're not allowed to have any mercy on this person. Worst thing in the world is to worship idols. Worst crime of Judaism. What? That's worse than murder? Come on, what are you talking about? The answer is very simple. If you worship idols, then it means that there's no law. There's no law. You can do what you want to. Where does it say that you're not allowed to kill people? In the Torah. Where does it say you're not allowed to rape and to murder? In the Torah. Right? It doesn't say in the Gospels it says that. It doesn't say anywhere. What are you talking about? It doesn't say anything. You can do what you want to. It's also with all these other religions also. As soon as you start making up stuff, then you can make up everything. So worshiping idols is the source of all evil. If there is such a thing as evil, I mean, if you worship idols, then maybe there's no such thing as evil. Just do whatever you want. But the Torah says there is bad and good. That's this week's Torah portion. We're going to see in a moment. Don't have any mercy on them. A negative commandment. Don't be quiet. Don't hold yourself back from saying bad things about, if you have evidence, saying bad things about a missionary. End up on a terrible. Okay. And that's it. That's it today. Tomorrow we'll go to the more laws. So we have 54 laws. We just went through, I think, 10, 12 of them. Let's go to the Torah portion. Let's go to our Torah portion. Here we go. Good. I hope this is coming up on your screen. Yes, it is. One second. You know what? I'm going to go out of here. Let's see. Once I did this and it didn't come out. I don't know if this is coming up or not. So let's go like this. Very good. And now we will go back to the Torah portion. Here we are. Now, yes. This week's Torah portion, it also, like we said, has 54 commandments, and it really goes into the idea of the false prophet. The false prophet. Prophecy is very, very essential to Judaism. The whole entire Torah is prophecy. This whole book of Deuteronomy especially is clear prophecy. Moses is saying the whole thing from himself. And also all the previous books, Moses said, this is what God told me to tell you. So the only part of the Torah which is not prophecy are the first two of the 10 commandments, which the Jews heard that directly from God. So to speak, they became prophets. When they heard this, they heard directly from God. Except for that, all of it is what Moses heard directly from God, and he gave it over to everyone. So it's very, very essential. And not only that, it says that God said that I'm going to make prophets in every generation to keep everybody on their toes so that they'll do the commandments. I know what's going to happen. You Jewish people, you're going to make all sorts of, how do you say, tricks and concessions and try to find loopholes and things like that. So I'm going to send prophets in the future generations so that you should listen to them and not sin. Of course, it didn't work. The prophets, nobody listened to them anyway. But there's one thing is a genuine prophet that nobody listens to. But the worst thing is a not genuine prophet, a false prophet that everybody does listen to. Jewish people, unfortunately, as we're going to see from here, Jewish people have a klep. They have a desire for idolatry. Jewish people have a desire for everything. There's nothing that some Jew, some weird thing that Jews are very lively sort of people, and they'll go for almost anything. They're hard to keep them down. And so they like, one of the things Jews like is idolatry. They like idolatry. They like to be this. So that's basically the success of Christianity. Jews like it, and so they're drawn after this nonsense. But they do like it. Okay, so this Torah portion is telling us, watch out for it. Be careful. It's a bad thing, and I know you're going to do it. And like I said before, we said this a lot of times before. Amazingly, in the first temple, there was one person, Yerovam ben Nevat, and he convinced more than half of the Jewish people, 10 of the tribes, to worship golden calves. They worship golden calves for like 250 years, among a whole other cornucopia of idolatry that they had over there. So what can we do? Jews like idolatry. It says that the idolatry that there is now, though, is nothing like it used to be. Now, most of it just comes from ignorance. Back then, the people really knew what they were doing. They knew Torah, they knew mitzvahs, but it was really felt good to do idols. I don't know exactly what that is. It says that it's some sort of a pleasure that we just don't have today. But people were really drawn after it. Okay, so here Moses is trying to give the Jewish people power to avoid this desire. See, I'm putting in front of you a blessing and a curse. Okay, what's going to happen now is like this. When the Jews go into the land of Israel, so they're going to go to this place. It's not far away from Shechem. It's somewhere in the northern part of Israel. I showed you the map before. So a place called Mount Gerizim and Mount Avil. It's right next to each other. And this is talked about in Parshas Kitavo. Another couple of weeks, we'll learn about this. And they're going to divide up. 6 tribes stand on Har Gerizim and 6 tribes stand on Har Avil. And the Kohanim and the Levites stand in the middle, down on the bottom. And they turn toward the 6 tribes that are standing on Gerizim and say that everybody who does what God says is going to get blessed. And then they, and then they turn to the other one and they say anyone who doesn't do what God was going to be cursed. That's what they did when they came into the land. So this is just explaining, it's giving a foretaste of what this is going on. Ra'eh, look, I am giving to you today a blessing and a curse. What is the blessing? The blessing is that you will listen to the commandments of God that I am commanding you today. A lot of different meanings of this, but according to some opinions, the biggest blessing of all is that you will be able to do the commandments. That's the blessing. Like it says, schar mitzvah, mitzvah. The reward of the commandment is the commandment. So the blessing is that you are able to do the commandments. Another explanation is that the blessing is, like Rashi says, almanat, on condition. In other words, I'm giving the blessing now. God is saying, I'm giving you the blessing right now. But I'm giving it to you on the condition that you're going to listen to the commandments of God and do. And what about the curse? So I'm going to give you a blessing and a curse. What about the curse? It says, Ve'eta klala, v'haklala, and what about the klala? Im lo, if you don't listen to the mitzvahs of God. So here it says, Eta brach asher. Asher means that. It's like almost like certain. And Rashi says, I'm doing it on this condition. In other words, I'm giving you the blessing now, but it's on a condition that you're going to listen to the commandments. I'm sure you're going to do the commandments on the condition. We'll look into the commentaries. What's the curse? The curse is if you don't. In other words, you're not getting the curse now. You will get the curse if you don't listen to the commandments of God your God. And you turn from the way that I am commanding you today, and you go after leleches, and you will go after Elohim achirim, other gods, asher lo yodatem, that you never knew. New gods. All of a sudden, the non-Jews come, and they say to the Jews, hey, you like my house? Looking like a nice big house? Pretty nice. See this, my nice chariot I got? Yeah, Corvette convertible. This baby can really go. Where'd you get that? This really looks nice. I worship the frog, the god of the frogs. Never heard of that? No, I never did. No, but that's a really nice house you got there, Come worship with me. We'll be friends. I like you. You're a nice guy. I'm not going to be stingy. Come, let us bow together, let us pray together, and then let us drive our chariots together. What do you say? Yeah, sounds good, I sort of enjoy that. So it says, the curse is not if you serve God, other idols. It says, laleches, if you just go after them. If you just consider it, maybe there is something to this. But I don't like it. I'm a Jew. That's not for me. I don't like this. It's not so. Idolatry is not for anybody. It's not for anybody. Idolatry is bad for everybody. That's the 7 Noahide commandments. Idolatry is bad for the non-Jews as well. It's simply not true. But on the other hand, it's better than atheism. At least you believe in something. That's good. But here we're especially talking to the Jews. Don't go after other gods. So this is, why are they called other gods? So other gods because eventually they let you down, right? You see any Baal worshippers today, or any whatever it's called, these people, they worshipped all their gods. They had a big kick for a while. And then afterwards, the whole thing just peters out. You don't even know what these gods are anymore. They find some sort of an artifact or something. Anyone who would, it says, that's what Rashi says. If you will go, your sartam min haderech, you have turned away from the way that God has command you. What do you mean? You just worshipped an idol. Come on, you're still doing Torah. You're doing the commandments. You're keeping Shabbos. You're eating kosher. You're doing everything you want to. Just have a little idol in your house you bow down to. What's the big deal? Says Rashi, I'll tell you what the big deal is. It says in the Torah that if you go after other gods, you worship other gods, you don't even worship them. You just consider them to be an option. Just consider it. It's okay, let the non-Jews worship it. That's okay. It says as soon as you consider that, it's as though you've denied the whole entire Torah. You learn, anyone who actually serves idols, Harihu, in other words, you serve anything other than the creator of the universe, Harihu Sar, Mikol Aderech, you have turned away from the whole way of godliness, of Judaism. From here it says, anyone who just agrees, Moda means you just agree. Anyone who agrees with idolatry, Kakofer b'kol Torah, it's like he denies the whole entire Torah. I remember how the Rebbe just really got angry. The Nasi, the president, whatever it is, of Israel, he kissed the Pope's ring. I mean, the Pope is just pure idolatry. That's just like pure stuff. Can't get many more refined idolatry than that. And there it is. And he kissed his ring. Oh, come on. Anyway, so he says, okay, come on. I didn't worship it. It's just sorry. If you just moda, if you just agree that it's an option, it's okay, not so bad. Maybe not for the Jews with it. It's total and meaningless waste of time. When God brings you to the land that you are coming there, l'rishta, to inherit it, to take it over, I'm going to give you a blessing on the Mount Grizim and the curse on the Mount Avel. And now he tells us where is this Grizim and where is Avel. And like I told you before, the Kohanim and the Levites stood in between. And then we're going to learn this in Parshas Kitavo. Listen. He explains where they are. This is on the other side of the Jordan River. Continuing to the west. How the sun sinks in the west, right? Be'eretz Kanani, in the land of the Kanani, which is in the plain. Mula Gilgal, after this place, opposite this place called Gilgal, which is close to Elonei Moreh. Elonei Moreh is like in the northern part of Israel, in Shechem and all this. Near Shechem. We'll do some of the commentaries. You're going over the Jordan to take over the land that God has given to you, and you will conquer it, and you will dwell in it. You must be careful to do all the commandments and the laws that I have commanded you today. And now it continues to say, what are these commandments? And it'll start getting into some of the commandments. And let's go One of the things is destroy. Number one was to destroy all the idols, destroy all the. Okay. It says, look, I am giving to you the blessings and the curses. It says, which blessings and curses that were said on Mount Gerizim and Mount Aval. Har Gerizim today, there's, at least that's what they say, there's the Karaites are up there. That's pretty weird. My daughter lives in a place called Har Bracha. So that's over. Anyway, the blessing is put on Mount, it's a bracha. The blessing is put on Mount Gerizim. And the opposite of the blessing is put on Mount Aval. Let's see a little bit of this. It says, Ra'ei Anochi. It says, doesn't say Tir'u. It says Ra'ei, singular. See, I am putting, and then it says plural, I'm putting in front of you. Ra'ei, it says singular. And what does it mean? The call God is showing to each and every one. Some people say this is Moses speaking, right? Some people say that this is Moses speaking to Joshua. Say, Anochi is hero. I'm warning you that when you go into the land of Israel, bless the Jews when they go over the land. Some people say because all of the curses and the blessings that are mentioned in the book of Deuteronomy are all in singular language, right? You look over there in Parshas Kitavo, you see it's all speaking language singular. Since you, it's all singular language, second person singular. Some people say, look, Anochi, I, what does it look, Anochi? Anochi is the first of the 10 commandments. Anochi, where is this? Anochi is the name of the 10 commandments that begin with the word Anochi, and do them, because all the commandments are included in the 10 commandments. So that's what it says, Anochi, see the Anochi, the first of the 10 commandments. Another explanation is, Anochi, look at me, mimeni, from me, Tir'u, you will see, and you will come to do. In other words, it's telling the Jews, Anochi, look at me, because this is Moses speaking. Another explanation, Ra'ei Anochi, Ra'ei is singular. This is Moses. Moses, first of all, taught to Aaron. Then afterwards, he taught it to Aaron and his sons, etc., etc. So that's plural, Nifnechem, before them. Okay, we could do more, but let's make a little bit of progress over here. Ohr HaChaim HaKadosh. Here he says, let's take another explanation. He says, the bracha, the klala, it says, I'm giving you a blessing and a curse. Shelo hayat tzarich lomar ela et bracha v'haklala. He could have said, what is the blessing? All the sentence over here is extra. He doesn't say it. It says, Ra'ei Anochi, bracha v'klala. And then what does it say? The blessing is like this, and the curse is like this. So he could have said, one second. Oh. He could have said the bracha and the klala, like it says by afterwards, right? I am giving you a blessing. But it's explained what the rabbis say. Omer lehem Moshe, atem ro'im yoshim. You see that evil people succeed. Right? If you do sins, you make it good. They're the non-Jews, the idolaters, they have these huge, much success in churches and things like that. Money, they succeed 2 or 3 days. But in the end, they get all knocked out. They're finished. That's hayom bracha. That's what it says today. There's a blessing and a curse. What does it mean? The blessing, which is also a curse. Namely, what? What's the blessing that's a curse? The evil people get pleasure in this physical world. It's only a short amount of time. But finally, in the future, the hayom lasosim, like it says today, to do. So if you see the evil people succeeding, it's only temporary. But who masha diktek lomar, it says today, next to the bracha of a kalal, namely that it's not really a blessing. The blessing of the curse is only a blessing for today, and it's not going to be very long. It won't last very long. That's what Ohr HaChaim says. Here. Okay, Sofrono says, I'm muting though here, you don't mind. Sofrono says, Ray, Hebita, look, Shaloya inecha al ofen beinoni kamo shehu haminag barov. Look, don't say I'm just going to be in the middle. I won't do too many sins, but I won't do too many. I won't do any. I'll be in the middle. It's true, I'm giving you a blessing and a curse. These are two opposite poles. Ki habracha hu hatzlacha yoter min hamaspik al atzmo hayoter tov. What does it say? Don't try to go in the middle. There's the blessing and there's a curse. The blessing is much better than if a person tries to be in the middle. The curse is me'ara mechasaret shelo yusag hamaspik, that you'll never really be satisfied. If you want to do bad, so you'll never be satisfied in doing bad, right? But the good, as soon as you do something good, it's already eternal, and you really have something in your hand. Both of them are putting in front of you. What do you want? You want immediate success? Then you got an option. You can do bad things if you want to. But you should know that it's not lasting, it's not permanent. The real blessing is going to be only in doing what Hashem wants. It says, Kli Yakar. The Kli Yakar says what the rabbis say, Ein Gehinnom La'asid Lavo. In the future, there will not be any hell. It says that God will take the sun out of its sheath, and others will reveal godliness, and it'll burn up all the bad people. Shneimar, like it says, in the prophet Malachi, that God will burn up all the bad people. So we won't have any necessity of hell because there's not going to be any bad people. That's what it says. Hayom, natati lechem hayom, that means is the daytime, the sun. But that's talking about the bad people. That God will take out the sun and all of its power, and it'll burn them all up. Therefore, they get their pleasures only today. But the tzaddikim, it says, it says that the sun will heal you. God will take the sun, and there's the revealed godliness, out of its sheath, and it'll burn up the bad people, but it'll heal the good people. Therefore, it says, Hayom bracha v'klala, mina gilgul hayomi. You're going to have a blessing from the sun in the sky. It's going to be the blessing and the curse. Why? Because in this world, you don't get a reward. But in the future, God is going to take the sun out of its sheath, and the same sun that's going to burn up the bad people, that's Hayom, is going to be a curse for the bad people. It's going to be good for the holy people. That's what the sun is going to be. Okay, what is the blessing? That you will listen to the commandments of God that I am commanding you today. The bracha al manas asher tishmu. The blessing is in order, and as I'm giving you the blessing now, and you can keep it, but only on the condition that you listen to the word of God. If not, I'm going to take it back. What can I do? Here he says, et habracha, Omer et habracha, because not only the blessing that you will receive from the way of Hashem, also the od lo ima yu'ud tov. Also, there's a good goal that's waiting for you. What's the goal, the present that's waiting for you? One blessing is that you're gonna walk in the way of God. Another blessing is ki hashmiya b'Torah A person that does what he says in the Torah, tainug mufla, it's a tremendous pleasure. Umechayat nefesh, and it enlivens a person's soul. Like it says, shimu v'techin nafshecha. So one blessing is that you can do what God wants. And the second blessing is, you get a double blessing, is that you get pleasure from doing it. Hamargish b'tam Torah, if you feel the taste, the pleasure of the Torah. Tasichenu nafsho, this will enliven your soul. Ki alav l'shalim gamul tov lamatan matana tova muflat ve'ein tzorich lomar she'ein litvoa schar aleh. That God has given us such a wonderful gift, the Torah. So there can't be any more bigger gift than to just do the Torah. There's no greater gift than that, right? You're demanding to go to heaven. Just the fact that you can do the Torah right now on the earth is the greatest pleasure that there can possibly be. Here's a kliyakar, a lot of kliyakar, but we don't have time. Huh? Okay, let's just do a little bit more. And what is the curse? Well, the curse I think we'll learn about tomorrow. Let's learn about tomorrow. Let's just learn over here. Dat zakenim, the blessing that you will listen. Mashal zaken. What does it mean? You get the blessing if you listen to what God says, and the curse if you don't. Here we have a parable. Once upon a time, there was an old man, a zaken yoshev, al emaderach, and he sat on the crossroads. Yesh lefanav shtei derachim, and he's got two ways in front of him. Echad techilato kotzim v'sofo mishar. One way is a bunch of thorns and thistles, and after that, it's a straight path. One of them is the exact opposite. That's straight in the beginning, it's straight and it's paved. But afterwards, there's going to be all sorts of thorns and etc. Umazir is over him, so he's sitting there. Why is he sitting there? And warning people, don't take the easy path. Derech Sham, over in Derech Sham, Omar says, don't be fooled by the road that is easy in the beginning, because in the end, everything is kolo kotzim ad sofa, because eventually it's going to come to all sorts of thorns and brambles until the end. Go in this way that there's thorns and brambles in the beginning, because in the end, you're going to be able to get to where you're going. You're going to be able to actually reach the destination. Call Misha Shomei Alo, anyone who listens to him, even though Shigama'at, that he has to work a little bit in the beginning, but afterwards, he's going in a peaceful way. He's happy. But a person that does not listen to him, and he goes in the way that's easy in the beginning, so in the end, he gets stuck. Over Avera, same thing. A person that in the beginning, he does sins and he does whatever he wants to. So it's going, everything is going right. If it's, flying, he's coasting. How they call it? God, everything is wonderful. But the only problem is, Kishanofal mate, when after a person dies, which eventually everybody dies, as he goes to hell, the kulam kotzin, that's all of the brambles and etc. But a person who puts an effort in this world, as that is the big blessing. In the end, it's easy for him, and he has joy and happiness serving the creator of the universe. Have a good day. God willing, tomorrow we'll continue learning Parshat Ra'eh and the commandments therein. See you tomorrow at 8:15 in the morning with Mashiach Now. Shalom uvracha.